I spoke to a few friends and we come up with a plan to set up a charity. And then we got hit again and again, and then the vehicle behind got hit with rockets, and I suffered with PTSD from after that tour, but without realising it. Then I started doing stuff like affirmations and positive self-talk.
So welcome to the channel again. Today as a guest we've got Paul Minter. He has formed the Head Up charity, and Head Up aims is to form a 7-day positive mind retreat for the armed forces and other personnel as well. And Paul will tell us more about that, but first we'll probably speak a little bit about Paul's history, and then we'll talk about, we'll probably go on to, I'd like to touch on PTSD, and we'll talk about Head Up as well. So fantastic, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's no problem at all. So what's your background then, Paul?
So I was born and raised in East London. Stayed there till I was 16 years old, but from the age of 8, all I wanted to do was join the military. I think I watched a Royal Marines programme on ITV where they kind of took people from the beginning to the end.
Other channels available?
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more channels now. And I watched these Royal Marines going through a tough time and getting stuck in and being part of a tight knit unit, and I was like, that's what I want to do. Didn't know anyone in the military, never did. Didn't have any family or friends, but it was just stuck from my head from about the age of 8 until I was 16, and I never changed my mind. I said I want to go and join the army, or join the Royal Marines as it was back then.
So you joined at what age?
I just turned 17 when I actually eventually went. Because when I finished school, I said to my mum, "That's it, I'm joining the Royal Marines," and off I go. And she persuaded me to do something different first, to try college. So I actually moved to Newcastle. Went to Newcastle, spent 2 or 3 months in a 5-star engineering college. Really didn't want to do it. All I wanted to do was join the Royal Marines. And during this time, this is 2003 when the Iraq invasion happened, and all I was watching on the news was the British Army out there fighting, and I was just thinking, that's where I want to be. I want to be part of this. As strange as it might sound to some people, it was just fascinating for me. It was just what I always wanted to do. But I went to the careers office in Newcastle to join the Royal Marines, and the Royal Marine Sergeant was in there, and he said, well, where are you from? In his Geordie accent.
Don't do it.
I don't want to offend anyone. But then I said, oh, I'm from London. And he was like, well, F off back to London. And I was like, what? I was dumbstruck. I couldn't believe it. So I went back home and I said, well, we were living in Newcastle at the time. I said, oh, Mum, I'm moving back to London tomorrow. She was like, why? And I said, oh, I've been told to F off back to London and join up down there. So she couldn't believe it, but I did it. I packed my bags, and the next day I went back to East London where my dad still lived in Manor Park. And then went to the careers office, saw the army because the Royal Marines weren't there, and they persuaded me to join the army, and that was it. I was in.
The rest was history, as they say.
Pretty much, yeah.
So how long did you spend in the army overall, from the point you joined at 17 and to the point you left? You're not in the army now, obviously, because you're doing what you're doing now.
So 2003, beginning of 2003, just turned 17. Well, it's kind of like in between 16 and 17, until November 2020. So 18 years in total. Quite a bit of time.
And what was what regiment did you, because people probably want to know, what regiment did you join? Yeah,
I joined the Household Cavalry Regiment, which is an armoured reconnaissance regiment. They're very good. Probably, maybe some people might argue, but without being too biased, they are one of the best reconnaissance regiments in the British Army. Always the first to go into any conflict. In Afghanistan, they done more tours out there than any other regiment because they are very swept up. But I also joined another unit, a bit more a specialised unit called Brigade Reconnaissance Force, which wasn't in vehicles, it was on your feet, and it was very mission specific, whether you go in and you try and find a certain person, or you've got to fight a certain group, like fly in through helicopters or make your way there through vehicles. So always very kinetic, but it was a fantastic place to be.
So I feel like you're a spy, really.
No. Well, a lot of the stuff we've done in Iraq, we was in small 4-man teams, and we'd go into rooftops or underground for 3 weeks at a time, 2-3 weeks at a time, and get eyes on the enemy, and sometimes you could have 100 insurgents walk past you 2 meters in front of your bush, and just 4 of you there, and they never knew you were there. So in a way, there was a lot of spying going on.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So what was you? So when you got into the army, was you actually? What was the regiment again? The
Household Cavalry.
Household Cavalry. So do you have to train in a specific area, like a medic or an engineer or this and that? What did you actually start off by training in?
So because the Household Cavalry Regiment, they are kind of like small tanks, really small tanks. So you do your basic mechanic sort of.
Oh, okay. So it's like
engineering, mechanic sort of courses, but then you progress. You've got to learn how to drive the vehicles, which they're amazing vehicles. They go 7 gears forward, 7 gears back. You can be going back through woods or wherever you are at the same speed as you would go forward, just with a commander telling you to pull left stick or right stick sort of thing. So it's quite a technical job as a young 17, 18-year-old lad or lady now, but to do that job. But then you advance to a gunner, so now you're the person in charge of the guns and firing, and then you advance to a commander.
So what countries have you been to where you've been, I wouldn't say appointed, that's not the right word, is it?
Yeah. So I've done 5 tours in total.
Tours, that's the word I was looking for.
Operational tour, yeah. So I've been into Afghanistan 4 times out on the front line, so I've spent just over 3 years of my life out there. And I've also been in Iraq once, so another 7 months out there. So, fighting on the front line, almost 3.5 years of my life. First tour, we were the very first ones out into Afghanistan in 2006 into Helmand province. So we were just completely overruled by Taliban, and we were the first ones in. So everywhere we went was just constant fighting, hardcore fighting, very close combat, face-to-face fighting really.
Yeah, I'm guessing, and I'm not putting words in your mouth or anything like that. It's only, I'm guessing that it's either you do what you need to do, or they will do what they need to do. Oh, yeah. There was no, hold on a minute, I've got to go toilet sort of thing.
No, they are ruthless. They're a ruthless bunch of people. I mean, we've seen it over the last few years with other terrorist groups and how bad they are, and the Taliban are very much up there. Wow. Well, when I went in, the horrific scenes of what they were doing to females and children and villagers. I wouldn't even talk about it to you right now on camera because it was that bad.
Wow.
But over the time, so I spent I was there through the whole conflict. So I was there right at the beginning, all the way to the very end throughout my time. And by the time we left, it was in a much better place. Females were actually getting to go to school now. We had females in the government, females in the Afghanistan army. We even got a female into the Olympics, which was almost unheard of. And people were starting to change their way of thinking. The younger generation were coming up and having a voice where they never had it before. So you could see some real positive impact of us being out there. And then, as we all know, unfortunately, Biden pulled the plug and gave it back to Taliban. And unfortunately, I think it's gone back to how it was before, which is really hard to take, really.
It does appear to be regressing and going back. I suppose it's hard to comment from afar, but I'm guessing you still know people in the armed forces who have an opinion on it. So you was in Afghanistan, you say Iraq. Did you do like the Bosnia tours?
I did, and they were just a bit before me. There was still some Bosnia tours going on, Cyprus, and a few. Ukraine's been a big one that we've been doing for the last few years. But I was always very much Middle East focused, so I never got to go to them.
And when you say a tour, because I don't know much about the army. When I was about 16 or 17, I'd done work experience like everyone does. And I'd done a week in the Queen's Regiment, where they showed us everything that was fantastic about the army. Back then they did. We'd done like SA-80 firing and some exercises and stuff like that. So I know very little about the army, really, to be honest with you. So when you say a tour, what does that mean? Do you get dates when you're there? Do you not really know how long you're there for? And what does that really entail?
Yeah, I mean, when you say a tour, they normally last between 6 months, 7 months. Or up to 9 months for British personnel. It changes, depends if you're in the army. If you're in the RAF, they might be shorter tours, so they could be 3 or 4 months. If you're in the Navy and you're somewhere else, they can go up to like a year or maybe even longer. So it all depends on the service who you're with. But speaking from the army side, it's normally 6 or 7 months, up to 9 months. 9 months is the longest I've done. If you're in the American Army, you can do 2-year tours, which is crazy.
Can you sign up for more? Or do you, at that point, at the end of a tour, is it like, well, thank you very much, Paul, off you go, jump on the aircraft back in, or is it, no, I want to stay do more, and you sign up there, and then how does that work?
It's very rare that they let you stay any longer than what your tour is, yeah. I've heard of a couple of people where, depending on what job role they're in, probably if you're on the front line, they won't let you stay for any longer.
Is that because of what you see out there? Is that because the impacts mentally, or?
I guess there might be something to do with that. Yeah, it's but I think because there's already another unit waiting to take over. They've already been training. So a tour date would be, like I say, 6-7 months. But then what does happen before that is probably 9 to 6 months worth of training as well. So actually, you're moving back. So your whole tour, pre-training and actually going out there, could be anything between a year to a year and a half. Right,
I see. So you're training that for the region you're going in. So if you're going into a mountainous region or something like that, you do specific training to do around there. Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's all sorts of training from. When you're out there and you're fighting, the difference between us and the Taliban is we've got rules of engagement. There's things we can and can't do. We have to we're there for the people.
But they use that to their advantage, don't they?
Oh, massively, yeah. So we were fighting an enemy we're completely lawless, whilst we had all the eyes on us from media, from lawyers. Believe it or not, you get a lot of lawyers that go out to Afghanistan deliberately seeking the Taliban and local people trying to say, have you been mistreated? So now we've got all that, we've got a lot on our shoulders to worry about at the same time whilst trying to save our own lives and other people's.
And of course they're going to say yes, aren't they? Look, no disrespect to them, but they're in a society where they probably haven't got a great deal, so they've got nothing to lose by saying, I'm only guessing there. So you've obviously been in lots of different situations, and without going into blood and gore, what's one of the most difficult ones you maybe found yourself in?
Well, I've been blown up twice, quite badly. I'm very fortunate that I'm still alive and I've walked away from them both. But the first time was when I was first out in Afghanistan. For those who don't know, people know what RPGs are, but rocket propelled grenades. Yeah. And what they do is they go into a vehicle, they pierce through the armour, they explode and they suck everything out and nothing survives. And I remember being 20 years old on top of my vehicle, and we got in a big ambush, and I just remember seeing a rocket propelled grenade coming to me, and I just remember I could see it about to hit me, my vehicle, and I was like, well, that's it, dead.
Do you, not freeze, that's the wrong word, but do you just accept what's coming because you know very little you can do at that point?
I was like, there's no way, this is like, you're talking about in about a space of a second. I had no chance to move or do anything. But very fortunately, we just got these new bits of armour put on our vehicle the week earlier that I had no idea what they were, but they were actually designed to try and stop RPGs, and we were the first ones ever in real life to get hit with them.
Wow.
And it worked. It blew us up badly, but it didn't penetrate, which is the main thing. And then we got hit again and again, and then the vehicle behind got hit with rockets, and unfortunately everyone in that died. And then we were stranded on our own because we were the front vehicle. Everyone, the rest of our crew or troop of vehicles thought we were dead, so they left us and went to the high ground, and they left us on our own, completely isolated, on fire. Dozens and dozens of Taliban closed in on our area. My driver was unconscious or dead, we didn't know at the time, but he was unconscious. My commander was trying to get comms, and it left me up on the vehicle to fight off dozens and dozens of Taliban on my own. So that's, and I can go into it being a lot more gorier, but I won't do for the sake of the video. But it gives you a bit of an insight as to the first incident and what happened. But I think.
Did you lose many?
Yeah, we lost a lot. We lost
on that particular incident.
Yeah, 4 people, unfortunately. My friends, who I could see them all. And that was, so what happened once that went on. That ambush went on for hours. Once it all calmed down.
Sorry to. There's so many questions going through here. It sort of gave me chills listening to that. Really, in a way. How did it calm down? Did they just run out of ammunition, people or men, or what? How did something like that calm down?
The British Army, they came in. First of all, I mean, you're talking. There was probably over 100 Taliban. There was loads in those. Me as a 20-year-old gunner, I mean, I managed to somehow. Get rid of quite a lot of guys. I was very fortunate. I guess I'd already come to the conclusion in my head that I was about to die because there's rounds just picking off everywhere. So thankfully I was a good aim that day. But then the aeroplanes come in, they start bombing in certain areas. There were no civilians in the area. They'd gone by this point.
They've just got to avoid you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. I was preoccupied.
Yeah.
And then artillery came in and then started wiping through. So it was a very well organised.
And how long does that take from the point you're in bits, aren't you? Let's face it. You got part of your squadron gone in effect. You're under attack. How long does it take before the planes come in and start doing that? How long have you got to?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I reckon it was between maybe about 12 minutes.
Oh, okay, probably feels like a lifetime.
Oh, 12 minutes is a long time to be in an ambush.
Yeah,
I mean, not many people survive that long in an ambush, so we were very fortunate. But yeah, the big problem that I see and face now, that I've matured and that I'm a lot more aware of mental health and everything, is I haven't explained to you everything that I've seen, I saw and what I went through and what I felt in that moment in time. But what they done once it finished, they got me on a helicopter and my commander back to base, and there was a vehicle waiting for us. And they said, "Here's your new vehicle." We jumped in it and we went to the desert to join my troop. And that was the last time ever no one ever spoke of it. And as a young 20-year-old soldier, I just thought, well, this is it. This is what you do. No, let's get back out there. Let's fight.
There's no process in a weapon.
There's no process, and there's no follow-up. There's no care of support or duty to make sure that what's going to happen in years to come when maybe your brain can't process it or something happens. And that's the real issue with. I mean, I love the armed forces. They're everything to me, and so are the people inside of it. But I would also point out where things are going wrong. And one of the big problems is, to go to war, you have to be in a real warrior mindset. And that's why they train you for 6-9 months solid, to get you ready to go, to get you to fight, to get you put your body in a way of bullets, to save other people, to carry on even when you lost your friends or when you've been hit yourself. But what they don't do is there's no decompression inside. You go to Cyprus for 2 days and have a few beers and they're like, right, yeah, you're done.
Missy Beach.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, a couple of beers, probably get in a fight with someone. Yeah. And then they're like, yeah, okay, everyone okay? Yeah, okay, right. You've got 10 weeks leave, 6 weeks leave. We'll see you back here in 6 weeks' time. And it's just, there's no care of duty there whatsoever. And I believe it's complete neglect.
It's missing, yeah. And I suppose that's when we talk about PTSD, what you've described there is what I sort of, not quite to what you said there, what I sort of imagined causes them effects. And I don't know, on the obviously it's nice to lead on to PTSD really from what you've described there in a way. And what could you really say about PTSD? What's your thoughts on it, the impacts, and how does it work? How does it impact your life? Have you suffered from PTSD?
I suffered with PTSD from after that tour, but without realising it. So I've lived from that moment on with nightmares and waking up in sweats and everything. But I've just normalised it as like, oh well, it's just whatever. So I'd hide it a lot with. Well, especially in the military, it's a big drinking culture. So quite often I'll go out and drink, or I wouldn't want to be on my own. But at the same time, I don't want to be around lots of people. Getting very frustrated, very angry very quickly, because I now have that warrior mindset. I haven't switched off from it. So you can't have that mindset in the normal life. And I'd be out in a bar maybe, or down the street, or in a restaurant. And someone might say and do something, and I'm so quick to react. I'm over alert, overreactive, and that's all signs of PTSD, And then you start to think, well, why am I like this? What have I done? But it's not you. It's the conditions that you've been put into. But I did suffer after my 4th tour really badly. I came back and without realising, I was doing really well in my career. I was moving forward, I was progressing way above my peers. And then I started suffering horrendously with paranoia. I kept thinking that there were people after me, everyone was talking about me. I couldn't be in the same room as people because I'd see someone sniggering and laughing, and instantly I'd think, they're talking about me, they're laughing at me.
One of the symptoms, is it, of PTSD?
Because in Afghanistan, everywhere you go, especially if you're on the front line in the desert, you don't know what's around the corner. You know, we used to go through compounds and buildings, you know, sometimes go through 100 different compounds in a week, and you don't know who's behind the next door. Or your friend's just been blown up the week before because he trod on an improvised explosive device, or you can't trust the people around the corner. You know, a 6-year-old kid threw a grenade over a wall and killed one of my friends. A 6-year-old kid, because he got given $1 by a Taliban. So, but then earlier on that day, my friend who he killed was giving him some sweets and playing with him. So you see how you're always on edge. You don't know who to trust. You don't know what to do.
It's quite psychological. That
real deep psychological thing, and then that has a real deep impact with your subconscious and your conscience and all other systems inside your brain. It's such a complex piece of material, our mind and our brain. We don't even fully understand it. So all of that is getting deep rooted inside of us. And then you come back into normality, and all these little things are triggering you so quickly, and you're reacting as you would do when you're out there, but you can't react in the same way. And it causes people to hate themselves, to feel depressed, to be anxious. When I was so paranoid, I was so anxious about going outside, I didn't want to go outside anymore, so I isolated myself in my room. And then that led to depression. So, you know, it's like it's a terrible knock-on effect from having PTSD or having paranoia or whatever label you want to call it. It's just it then encompasses everything.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And I feel, and I don't actually know, correct me, I feel like you've come out of the other side of that now. You seem quite, I wouldn't say positive in the way you talk about it, but you sort of understand. You sound like you understand it a lot more, so you're able to sort of manage it and deal with it. And I'm guessing from the experience you've had, that's one of the reasons Head Up was formed. So where did that concept come from then? Where did it all start?
Well, it's a really great story, but starts in the most terrible way.
Okay.
So, you know, we just touched on I had paranoia and I had problems. My paranoia got so bad that I was in London one day, and I just convinced myself someone had a bomb in his bag, an Asian man on his way to work. And I convinced myself, and I jumped on him and I held his hands down so he couldn't pull any triggers, and I shouted to everyone he's got a bomb. And then the police came and called in the area, checked him, and then I was in handcuffs, and I was like, oh, you know, what have I done? You know, and then it just spiraled from there. So rather than me actually getting help, or the army offering me help, they actually tried kicking me out of the army.
Oh, right.
And it was a massive, and you know, I say the army was a certain individual. There was loads of more individuals trying to fight the case for me. Eventually they kept me in, but I didn't receive any help, and then they sent me back to Afghanistan for 9 more months. And then I came back, and then everything started to get a lot worse again. So then eventually I had to go and see a doctor. I was like, look, I'm so depressed and paranoid, and you know, I'm just completely consumed. I was married at the time. That had gone out the window because of the way I was behaving, and I was on my own. And then I saw the doctor, and I said, look, I'm desperate for help. I don't know what's going on. And in this time, I lost a couple of friends who'd taken their lives, and I was very worried that I was on the path of moving in the same direction as them.
Wow, so you'd seen that as well then, people.
Yeah, so friends of mine were taking their lives, and I was like, I'm like in such a bad mindset. I was like, am I going to be the next one? What's going on here? So I went through the system of trying to get some help in the armed forces. A lot of it was just sitting down with someone and trying to talk about my childhood, where I had a pretty decent childhood, and I was just saying to them, look, I've been to Afghanistan and Iraq 5 times on the front line. That's for 3.5 years of fighting. I've been blown up twice. I've done X, Y, and Z. I think we should concentrate on that. But it never really happened. But I also explained to the doctors, I said, I don't think this is ever going to help me, because I'm in a military environment. I said, if I was a burns victim, you wouldn't treat me next to an open fire. Or if I was in a road traffic accident, you wouldn't treat me next to a motorway. I said, my traumas come from being in the military, so why all the help, the only help available is in the military environment. I said, it's never going to work, because I still feel on edge while I'm wearing this uniform or I'm in this building. So eventually, I used to live in a corridor on camp, and a friend of mine who I was with the day before, I woke up one morning and I found him, unfortunately, took his life. He was hanging in the corridor. And then I went to bed that night, and I was like, I don't want to like be the next number. I don't want to be the next person. So I said to the doctor, I need you to sign me off for 3 months. I'm going away. I'm going to try and see what I can do to make myself feel better. Thankfully, being a really good guy, he signed me off for 3 months. And I moved out of barracks. I rented a house in St Albans. And I didn't have a TV, didn't have anything, bare minimal, just enough, a plate and knife and fork, just enough that I could just then concentrate on myself. So I started reading as many positive mindset books. I started listening to podcasts. Started going on YouTube and Googling ways how I can improve my mental well-being, and I started writing down all the different ways that I can do it. And it started off with stuff like journaling, which I've never done before. But then I wasn't just doing it. I was understanding why is journaling good for you? What does it do to your brain? Why does it make us feel better? Then I started doing stuff like affirmations and positive self-talk. I started learning about sleep and the importance of sleep and how not having the right sort of sleep has effects in your brain.
It impacted me,
yeah, it does many people. Sleep's probably the number one thing that if you're not getting it right, it's going to destroy everything else. Yeah. I started learning about nutrition and how what we eat and what we put in our body affects our brain and our moods. I started learning about animal therapy, music, just loads and loads of different things. Music was a great one because what you listen to, we relate to music so much, and if you just put stuff on that makes you feel good at certain times, it has a real impact on how we think. So I started doing all that, and then within about 2 or 3 weeks, I genuinely, from being really ill for a few years, the best I'd ever felt in my whole life. I'd say that hands down. And I was like, wow. And one of the key things is because I'd done it, I think. I think because I took control and I'd done it. Yeah.
But it took you a while to get there, though.
It took years.
It takes you a while to accept it and think, do you know what, I've got to do something about this. And that's the difficult thing, isn't it?
It really is. It really is difficult to do that because, I didn't want to face that there was actually really anything wrong. It's just a phase I was going through. I'm not this person. I'm back. I'm still. You still think of maybe like for some people who are like in the 40s or whatever, they go to the park to play football because they think. And they start running around like they were when they were 18, 20 because they forget.
I've tried that. I broke my ankle.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. So we always think back to when we were at our best. Yeah. But we're not always there. So we need to slowly accept that we are changing and we do change. And life isn't when we were this amazing 20-year-old person who had no care in the world. So from there, I started talking to lots of friends because I knew loads of people that were suffering, and I just started phoning them up saying, look, I'm not telling you I've got some magic solution, but can I help you a little bit? Because I've just done something over the last few weeks that's made me feel so much better. And a few people were like, yeah, go on then, I've got nothing to lose. And I started teaching them some of the stuff that I'd learned. And then they came back and was like, Paul, I feel a lot better, like genuinely really good. I've got another friend somewhere else that could do with your help. And before you know it, by the time I finished my 3-month sick leave, I had about 30 people that I was helping. Wow. When I went back to the army, I got called into the doctors and they said that they decided they're going to medically discharge me, which is the worst news I could have ever heard. Yeah. I thought I was going to be in the army for the rest of my life. It was what I wanted to do. I said, I feel better now. And they were like, no, I'm sorry. What you described to us previously, we don't feel like you're safe to yourself or anyone else. So I was devastated. And then COVID happened, and then I was on doing the whole COVID thing on my own. And then I could just come up with the idea. I said, look, I don't want to go into a normal 9-to-5 job. I want to help people further. So I spoke to a few friends and we come up with a plan to set up a charity with the idea of we know lots of people in the armed forces, we've done quite a lot of market research, and what we want to do is try and capture people that are falling through the cracks, offer them these different ways of how they can improve their own life, but give them a bit of a guiding hand to doing it, and then kind of set them on their way with some structure so that they're not on their own, but so for example, when we have our retreat up and running, which is hopefully fairly soon, they'll come to us for 7 days. They'll learn multiple different mindset training methods, so stuff like cold water therapy, nutrition. We're going to have a couple of horses and dogs there, so a bit of animal therapy, ecotherapy, about the importance of being outside, and being in nature, affirmations, journaling, a whole bunch of different stuff. We'll even talk about like stoicism, talk about hormones, so we can understand hormones. But the key thing that we're going to be doing is giving people understanding and awareness. So giving them a deeper knowledge of actually what happens.
Education.
So, education, yeah. And I think you said understanding earlier, and it's like such a key word. You can say to someone, you should eat more vegetables, and they're like, oh great, thanks, but but what does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything. But if you say, look, you should eat more vegetable because it helps with the microbiome in your body, you've got all these fungus and bacteria, and you need to help keep the good bacteria at a higher level, and you can show them through pictures and explain it to them, then they know, okay, I need to eat this, because if I don't, I'm not getting the right sort of nutrients in my body that's going to affect my brain, that's going to affect my mood throughout the day. Wow. So that's what we want to do, offer them a lot more deeper insight.
So when you say them, obviously when I done the introduction, I sort of said armed forces and then didn't really elaborate anymore. But it's not just armed forces. Who would come to you?
So it's people who are still serving in the armed forces. So from any service, Army, Navy, Royal Marines, and people who have served in, veterans, and that includes reservists. So there's actually a pool of 5 million people in the armed forces, or in the UK. So it's a lot of people that can use our services. It doesn't matter what mindset they're in, so they can be in the best mindset or they can be in a pretty dark place. Anyone is allowed to come to us. That way we're helping people find out different ways how they can improve their life before they get to certain stages, whilst at the same time giving a bit of guidance and a helping hand to those who really need it. And hopefully it will take away the stigma from people having to go to ask for help, because a lot of people will say, I don't think I really need help, I don't want to take a place away from someone else that needs it. So then they wait until things get so bad that who knows what's going to happen. And it could be a little bit, I wouldn't say too late, because it's never too late for anyone, but they could have dealt with this situation a lot sooner. So we want everyone to come and use our services that has been in the armed forces or still is.
That's brilliant. So obviously this is something you're working on. You've done, I know you've done a big charity run. I've watched it on LinkedIn. And how many miles was it? 5,000 miles?
5,000 miles.
5,000 miles. So how long did that take you? Come on, it's better.
So it was a bit of a crazy run. So all of us, there was 4 of us that initially set up the charity, and we all said, we've all just come from we're all soldiers in the army, and we were like, what do we know? How are we going to get all these people interested? How are we going to let people know who we are? So we all said, look, why don't we do a big challenge each? And I said, look, I'll come up with the idea, so I'll do something quite elaborate to really, put that first punch in and get everyone talking about us. And I thought, what better way than running all the way around the coastlines of the UK, talking about the charity, spreading the word far and wide. So that's what I've done. And 1st of March 22, I started in Liverpool, and I ran all around England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Isle of Wight and Isle of Man, which is just short of 5,000 miles, but breaking a new world record.
Wow.
But it was never about the world records, it was just simply to get out there, meet lots of people, talk to thousands of people, get in the media, which we've done with all over the national media, local medias. We got lots of contacts. We got to speak to people at the extremities of the UK to find out what problems they were having, what issues they had, and that was just helping us to gather more information on how we're going to structure the retreat and how we can reach these people that need it most.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And have you got any thoughts yet? So obviously the concept of the retreat is there. You know how you want to do it. You're working on funding. Do you have a possible location yet? So
we've always said that we so when we done our market research as to why people weren't getting help, why they weren't asking for it, excuses they were giving when there's help available, some of the things that people said was geographical location. We feel that a certain charity or certain organisation has become regionalised to an area, or it's too far to get to. So we thought, well, let's eliminate that problem and let's try and be as central in the UK as possible. So we're kind of looking for somewhere in the Midlands, whether that be Herefordshire, Worcestershire. There's a bit of land that we're potentially looking at the moment, which is around near Stoke.
Don't say anything, someone might take it.
Yeah. We've got a few options, But there has been other options that have come up as well. So, and we're not going to say no, but we do, what we don't want to do is be at the extremity, like for example Cornwall, where that's really going to take it away from someone up in Scotland, for example. So somewhere central-ish UK, we've got a few options for land.
And so if someone wants to get involved and help you, obviously you have a website, Head Up website, and do you have like members who've joined up? Because what I've seen on LinkedIn is that there's people who are doing certain activities for you to raising money and things like that. So how would people get involved in doing that to help raise money? Yeah,
we've had some fantastic fundraising events. We've got quite a lot more coming up. But even people doing just like 5 kilometre runs, I say even, to some people that's bigger than
to me.
Yeah, it's bigger than my 5,000 mile run for some people. So we've got some amazing fundraisers. Like you say, we've got a website, head-up.org.uk, or Google Head Up Charity, you'll find it. We're on all the social media platforms apart from TikTok at the moment. We just come under Head Up Charity. Yeah. But everything's on the website. You'll see all the fundraising pages. We've got brochures on there that you can look at. We've got videos. We're on YouTube as well, so if you want to see any of the videos on there. We've actually partnered up with Gymshark, the clothing brand. So we're doing wellness days with them. So if there's any veterans out there or people in the armed forces that want to come and do a wellness day, you can. We've also partnered up with the Firefighters Charity. Okay. And they've got some retreats around the UK, particularly one called Harkham House in Devon. So we're going to be doing some mini retreats out of there. So we're going to try and trying to do stuff in the interim to our retreat being open. Try and actually help people whilst we're developing the retreat. That's absolutely fantastic. And one of the obviously it's great to speak to yourself because it's a fantastic story, but also as I sort of explained earlier off camera, that there's quite a lot of armed forces and people like that who work in the lift industry, and I'm assuming if there is any people like that within the lift industry who want to get involved in it, like you said, they can just reach out that way, and it's open to all, and I'm hoping that this video will reach some people within my industry, and it could help there as well. Yeah, definitely. If there's anyone who has been in the armed forces or even still serving, even if you're not yourself, lots of people know someone or know someone who knows someone. I don't think you can talk to anyone in UK that isn't affiliated with someone in the armed forces in some way or another. So please spread the word, spread the message. Our retreat, we really do believe in it. Lots of people do. It's completely for free as well. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. Yeah, you said earlier, which is brilliant. Completely for free. We will pay for your travel. We will pay for your 7-day stay, everything involved in it, and we'll make sure you go back home again. This will cost someone, if you were paying for it, normally anything in the region between £7,000 to £12,000. So and it's there for everyone and anyone. So if you do know someone in the armed forces or a veteran, please let them know about who we are. We're a full non-for-profit charity. No one can financially gain from this charity. Every single penny donated or raised goes directly to the beneficiaries, and we're completely transparent with everything. You can go onto the Charity Commission board and you can see our financial reports and exactly what we're spending the money on, and you'll see it just goes entirely onto the beneficiaries and people that use the services. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, it's been brilliant to speak to you and to hear the story, and I will be keeping track of it on LinkedIn, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again some other time, somewhere down the line when the retreat's up and running. It'd be great to actually see it and come along. Yeah, thanks so much. And I would really like to finish to say thank you to everyone that has listened, and if you are going through a tough time, whether you're in the armed forces or not, it doesn't matter. We all have struggles in life, don't we? And it can come from any different angle before we even know it. But what I would say, just from my own personal experience, is that actually taking control and doing something about it is the number one thing that you can do to make yourself feel better. If you're unsure on what to do, you can go to our website, and there's a whole list of different activities or all the stuff that I was mentioning earlier, alternative therapies, that you can take control of yourself and do it. But I would say the first thing to do is to get outside and be in the fresh air. Gratitude is a really good thing as well. Yeah.
Gratitude diary. Yeah, I've seen that. There are a few people have mentioned that.
Just say something that you're grateful for. There's so many. You can be grateful for the sea, the sky, people around you, the roof over your head, whatever. There's so much to be grateful for, and we don't realise.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, on that note, remember that gratitude. So I think we'll close it there. Fantastic to see you, and really hope to see you again.
Thanks very much. Cheers.